Hi guys, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to an art journal tutorial. This one, collage paper jumpstart. So I'm starting in my 9x12 Canson mixed media and I've taken it out of the coils. I grabbed my blue file folder of all my collage papers. I've got gel prints in here, leftover paint samples. I've got things on deli paper, tissue paper, and I'm pulling out a variety pages that just I think work together. I'm grabbing my Liquitex Basics matte medium and I'm going to glue these down to start off my art journal page. First, I'm going to tape off the coil area. This is going to give me a straight edge. And you saw me stick it onto my sweatshirt to make it a little less sticky so it doesn't pull up the paper. So I'm just ripping some of these collage papers, and you can see some have stencils, patterns, there's different marks, just a whole variety of papers, and that's what I wanted. They all have similar colors. We've got navy, light blues, there's some purple and some magenta in on these papers with some collaging in white, some dark collaging. So I just pulled what I thought went well. I want different weights of paper. Some are on mixed media paper, some are on deli paper, some are on just regular copy paper. And each of these is going to take whatever subsequent layers we're going to put on there a little bit differently. I have some deli paper there where I stenciled through that lilac stencil, and the white areas are there. I love how that collage down. So I randomly place them, and then, when I glue it down, some of them are going to end up in the same place, some of them are going to end up somewhere else. And really, I just want to have a good basis. I cut off the straight edge if I'm putting it on a straight edge, like on the inside of the quill. On the outside, I'm going over the edge some of the time, and I will just cut it straight. I'm layering these on top. That's going to provide different textures. This is a great place to start because not only do I have my color story as from the collage papers that I've selected, I've also got some patterns on there that are going to guide my decisions about which stencils that I want to use. And sometimes when you don't know where to start, just the process of gluing it down, moving that paintbrush and gluing it down is enough to get those creative juices flowing. And at this point, I don't know if I'm going to use it in the horizontal orientation or the vertical. I'll decide afterwards. Now, for the most part, I know that my collage papers are created with acrylic paint or permanent product. They are not water soluble. And if I did have some that were created with watercolor or pigment powders that are going to reactivate, I think I would keep them separate just so I would know how to treat it later on. I've got this layered up. I've got little bits of color here and there, and I'm just going to let this dry. Now I want to add even more texture. So one of the collage papers had a honeycomb pattern in it. It was made with shelf liner. So I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and links will be in the description box below, along with affiliate links to the Crafter's Workshop where you can get the stencils, Amazon where you can get them, or Nini's napkins. She carries many of the 6-inch and soon 12-inch stencils. And I'm using the light and fluffy modeling paste through this stencil. And I'm just going over, I just want some texture in some places. Now I'm going to colorize. So based on the collage papers that I picked, there's blue, light blue, navy, magenta, and then somewhat a purple. And those are the colors that I pulled. I'm matching it as closely as I can to what paints that I have. Now, all the paints are going to take on a different look depending on what paper is underneath. For instance, the copy paper is going to take on the paper in a certain way. The deli paper is going to be more translucent and it'll be lighter. If I wanted everything to take the paint in the same way, I could put a coat of clear gesso on this, and then everything would take it the same way. And I'm just mixing it with my fingers, with the baby wipe. I'm getting some of that purple, and I'm going for all over color. I'm trying to work it into the modeling paste, adding some, taking away some, getting some lights and darks, just some variety. I just want lots of visual texture as well and interest. You can see all those layers, all those papers, as well as the texture paste are just adding to the background here. And that's what I'm creating. I'm mixing the magenta, and it is phthalo blue. And I've got phthalo green there. And when I add the phthalo green with the other two colors, it makes a great navy. And when I started, that's what I wanted. I wanted some navy in there. So I'm just keep playing with the colors till I get what I like. Now I flipped through some of my stencils and I was wondering, and focal images, I've got some magazine pictures and, picked out a few things. And then I decided I'm going to stencil on here with this stencil. It's called the Faithful Tree. And I'm using white Liquitex Basics paint. I'm putting it on a makeup sponge and I am just stenciling this on. I taped down the stencil because I didn't want it to move. I want to get a fairly crisp line, and it's challenging enough because this is a fairly textured background. So instead of going with a silhouette tree, a black tree, so it's all in silhouette, because my background is dark, I'm doing the reverse. I'm making the tree lighter and I'm making it go off the page. And this 12 by 12 stencil is great for my 9 by 12 sheet. Now I want this to be the white to be fairly opaque, so I go back over it. Now don't be in too big of a hurry. You simply have to apply 2-3 layers of paint to build up the opacity. If you try to put more paint on the makeup sponge, it's more likely to seep under the stencil and create something that you really don't like. So I love the look of this. Now that I have my focal image, I'm thinking, okay, my sentiment, what is that? I have this one. It comes from my Change Sentiment Pack, which are available at Ninny's Napkins as instant downloads. And this one says, if you don't like where you are, move. You are not a tree. And I'm just cutting it in half, thinking about how I want to place it. I like it this way. So I'm thinking that's where I want to go. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking something's missing though. I don't think I'm quite done. So I decide I'm going to outline or shade around the outside edge. And I grab my woodless charcoal pencil, which is a very quick way to shade around. The problem here is twofold, and it has to do with what I've put on the background. On some places, I have the modeling paste, and this charcoal pencil doesn't work really well over top of the modeling paste. And number two, it also doesn't adhere very well where I have the deli paper. I can make it work, but I find that it works much better to use the float acrylic technique. And that's what you're seeing me doing here. I'm liking the look of the black around the edge. It is framing the picture. It's just giving that little extra depth. I'm putting the stencil back on and going over it with more white paint. The reason for this is it wasn't quite as opaque and true white as I wanted, and I really wanted to build up the opacity. So I keep putting the stencil back on and adding more. And you can see where I've added more, another layer, it's definitely more opaque, better coverage. I'm liking that. Then I get an idea. What if I add some shimmer to this? So I'm grabbing the Crafter's Workshop Shimmery Goodness. Now this stuff is kind of opalescent, but it's like something I've never used before. It picks up the light when it's on something that's hanging on the wall or in a book on the art journal page. It shimmers in a way unlike any metallics. And you're not, I feel bad because you really can't see the full effect of it. And I'm stenciling through it. I do end up off camera using a small paintbrush and adding more to the leaves to build up this shimmery goodness. And when I use it with a paintbrush, I thin it just a bit with water. It's not as thick as modeling paste. It's thicker than most gessos. And when you get it on your stencils, you need to wash the stencil. Just like modeling paste or gesso. It sticks on and then it's harder to take off. So I've added to that, and it's really brought out the texture paste on there, and there I was washing it. Now I'm back to the sentiment. I'm happy with that shimmer that's on the tree. It just made the focal image stand out a little bit more. And I'm cutting off some of this white. There's a lot of white on the tree, and I don't want the sentiment to compete with that, so I'm cutting it off, cutting it down a little bit, and then I'm playing with the orientation. And one of the things you can do here is play with it, take a picture, play with it, take a picture. Addition where you want it. My sentiment packs, I show you in a video how you can take and resize them. So you can make them smaller if you were doing a smaller page, or you can make them bigger if you were doing a bigger page. So you can print them off in whatever size you work in and need. I'm using gel medium to glue this down because there's so much texture underneath. It just makes it easier, but you could use the matte fluid medium. Cleaning the brush, cleaning the extra excess out of the brush. Loving the look of this. Decide to splatter with gold. Now there was some gold in the initial collage papers, and the gold with the blues and the purples just really sparkles. It's across the color wheel from it. And so really you've got that shimmer and that little bit of brightness from being yellowish. There you can see the shimmer from the shimmery goodness. Grab my Sakura glaze pen and I'm going to outline the sentiment. And these Sakura glaze pens, they are wonderful. They're glossy, they're dimensional, they're very bold, and they write over pretty much anything. I'm going over the texture paste here. I'm going over the acrylic paint, all the texture from the collage papers, and there's no problem. Just make sure it's dry. That'd be the biggest warning. Taking off the tape to get a nice clean edge. I'm loving that shimmery goodness. And since I had leftover paint, I put them on some coffee filters and stenciled it over. And now I've got a few more collage papers to add back into my stash. Here are the close-ups. Thank you for watching and joining me on my journey. Leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, share this video with your creative friends. Follow me on Instagram. Join my Facebook group. Bye for now.